a new tool to teach virtually and in person? This is MacVoices. This edition of MacVoices is supported by TextExpander by Smile, the makers of world-class software. Visit textexpander.com/podcast to learn more and download your free demo. Welcome to MacVoices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, I recently attended a Showstoppers event for virtual CES, and of course, everything is virtual this year. And I saw a piece of technology that I thought was particularly interesting from both the educational and business standpoints that help you do an online presentation and be a little bit different, maybe deliver your message a little more clearly. And I was very impressed by this and asked the gentleman to come and show it to you on the show. And so I want to make sure, I'll try to get this right, guys. I've got Bailey and G from HoverCam. I've got Matt from eGlass Solutions. And the product they're going to be showing is, Learning Glass Solutions, Matt. I'm sorry. And the product is eGlass. So gentlemen, welcome to the show. Thank you for doing this.
Hey, Chuck. Thanks for having us.
Yeah. So Bailey, I want to start with you because you're sitting in front of the product and this very impressive looking setup. And so you'll be running the show. G and Matt ask you to jump in anytime you want. But I'll let one of you describe exactly how this product came to be, how you all partnered and brought it together.
It's kind of a funny story, G. Do you kind of want to tell it from your perspective of?
Yeah, sure. So the eGlass came into being after I met Matt, and before we met, Matt was working on this illuminated glass, and he was teaching in teaching physics using this great way of showing the students behind the glass and the images flipped. I randomly came across this as I was kind of bored one day, and then I had an injury I was recovering from, and sitting in the couch, and I said, I really want to brush up on physics for various reasons. And then I said, let me just see what's available online, and I looked up magnetic wave, and I want to learn more about that. And I came across Matt's video on YouTube, and it was really fascinating. That was like the shortest 2-hour lesson I've ever taken, and I was really absorbed. And I watched this charismatic professor, and it's teaching me everything I wanted to know of electromagnetic field. So I was wondering in the middle of it is that why I feel different this time. It feels like he was speaking to me one-on-one. It feels like I was right there. So I said, wait a second, how is he doing that? Because he's clearly writing behind the glass, and it seems like his left hand doesn't have a wedding ring. So it's it's like, is he writing with his left hand or is he writing with his right hand? Is he writing backward? So all those questions, and I figured it out by the night, and I found his video how he was setting it up. He had this SLR camera, has a mirror, has a video mixer. He has a quite elaborate studio setup. So I said, we need to make this a simple device. And we know about cameras, digital imaging. We have software to go with digital imaging. And the illumination of glass is great. It shines with a neon glow. Can I talk to this professor? We combine it together. We have a 1 + 1 much greater than 2. Maybe it's 1,000. So I sent Matt email message, and we met. We worked really hard on that together, and we met. And Matt said we really owe it to the youth to, get them to learn better. So we worked really hard to get this technology work together between early August and now it's just a short several months. We got a product, and we're actually shipping, and we're very close to ship a lot of them. So, Matt, do you have anything to add to the story?
Absolutely, Gee, that was wonderful, and it took me back to the day that I got your email, and it was like this sign from heaven. This was meant to be. You guys need to join forces. So, Chuck, we have been in business about 5 years, Learning Glass Solutions, Inc. But the genesis for Learning Glass and the Lightboard technology started about 10 years ago. I was teaching physics at San Diego State University, where I still work, hence I'm sitting in the lab right now. And one of my colleagues pointed out that there is this huge push for online learning. And he said, you're a good teacher, you're a creative guy, you should get involved because this thing is going to happen with or without you. And I think if you get involved now, you might be able to make a difference. And so I started thinking about what it would take to put my class online, because I am an old-fashioned guy. I like chalkboards, right? You can see the chalkboard back there behind me. I like writing with pen on paper or whiteboards. I love the physicality of it. And I thought, well, I don't want to take my class online and do a voiceover on PowerPoint. I want to do something brand new. And I started recording little video lectures of me on the whiteboard or me on the chalkboard, and it just didn't have the appeal that I wanted, right? The voice wasn't clear, my back was to the camera, it was just substandard, and I really didn't like that. My students absolutely loved those videos and wanted more and more of them because they were consuming video at an ever-increasing rate. So I thought, okay, what do I need to do that's totally new? And I knew that I wanted to face the camera, so clearly I had to write on glass. And then there were two technical hurdles. One was making the glass really illuminated within the glass. In the physics parlance, it's using something called total internal reflection. You shine light within the glass, and it stays within the glass until you frustrate it by adding pen, and that pen pops out crisp and visible. So that was the first technical hurdle. And then the second one was what G pointed out was I didn't want to have to write backwards. I tried it. It's really hard. You can do a couple very simple things, like anytime you write X, that's backwards. It's the same. That's not a problem. But you get to Y, it's very complicated. So I realized pretty quickly that all you had to do was a horizontal flip of the image. So right when you're looking in the mirror of your car, you see ambulance behind you, that's written backwards on the ambulance itself. That mirror does essentially this horizontal flip of the image. And so those two technical hurdles sort of were clear to me that this was a great way forward. And so we started doing it. And we started making these things, and pretty soon we got a flood of emails from other people that wanted them, and they didn't want to have to make them. And so we started this company, Learning Glass Solutions. We've been around for 5 years, and we've been selling these things across the globe. What was missing was exactly what G pointed out, was the really simplified user experience that had everything built into one unit, right? We have great, fantastic Learning Glass units, but you have to add a camera. You have to add some software. You have to do a few things that add some complexity to it. And so we had been looking for a camera manufacturer. And we had been talking to a bunch of people about incorporating all this thing into a camera unit that had everything built into the same. And so when I got the email from Gia, it was sort of like, it's meant to be. And the fact that he's also in San Diego allows us to work very closely. And so that's what we started. That was, last year sometime we got that first email. And now we are selling these things, right? We are putting them into school districts. We are putting them into universities. It's really, really exciting.
So, Matt, I want to tell you that that's the first time I've ever heard anyone describe a physics processor as charismatic. Gee, that intrigues me a lot. But that's a whole nother show, I think.
Most
I
of
fooled
them
him.
in the lab wearing green eye shades and dark rooms. Matt is behind his glass. You can see his facial expression, his body movements, his gaze. So he really directs your attention to it. And when he gazed at something on that formula and that diagram, and you really get absorbed into it. So I think this is really a fascinating way of presenting content.
Yeah, and I've got a number of questions I want to ask, but the explanation you both gave kind of strikes me with my first impression on it, that I looked at it and it's like, this is something. The first question obviously is how they do that, because it is very cool. I think you're right. It engages you a completely different way, and that's what captured my attention. Is it's not just somebody, once again, turning their back to write on a whiteboard or looking down here and writing and having it appear up on the screen. It's interacting with the content. And so, yeah. We'll save the questions for later, but Bailey, I want to let people see this so that they can appreciate what it is we're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, in a minute, I might take over with screen sharing to show the actual effect. We've been talking about it. G's been talking about how engaging this physics lesson was because of this glassboard use. I want to show you guys, and I want you to feel the same way. But first, you can kind of see it in front of me here. You see this frame that's sitting on my desk right in front of me, and I'm sitting behind the glass. You'll notice the glass has this kind of vivid purple glow. That is the chroma clear technology that illuminates the text that you write on the glass with a dry erase marker. Matt was describing it. He used a big scientific word. I am not a physics professor, so I say pretty glowy glow. But there's also lighting built into it that lights me up. And I can turn that on right here. And you see on this camera, I'm a little overexposed, but when I switch to this camera, you're going to see it looks really good. Speaking of this camera, this is the camera on an arm that we added that captures the perfect angle. It captures the full sheet of glass with my face behind it and any writing that I put on the glass. And then that camera flips the image so it doesn't appear backwards for you. Lastly, you see this cable right here. This is my USB cable that's plugging into my computer right there. So it's literally a plug-and-play solution. All you do is plug it into a Mac. It also works with PC and Chromebook. And download the software for free from our website, and it's ready to go. So how about I show you guys the end effect of using eGlass? I'm going to switch to screen sharing and show you what it looks like.
Today's MacVoices is supported by Smile, the makers of TextExpander. TextExpander is one of those utilities that anyone can benefit from. Whether you are in a for-profit business, a nonprofit business, a single-person business, or just hanging out at home, TextExpander can make your life easier by automating those things that you type over and over again. And don't let the automation word scare you. TextExpander is simple to set up. A new TextExpander snippet can be set up in about a minute or less. All you have to know is what the text is that you type over and over, what 3 or 4 word abbreviation you would like to use to make that text appear, and how to hit the return key a couple times. That's it. Your first snippet is at your command. I hear you say, but I don't have any text that I type over and over, and you would be wrong. How about your name, address, phone number, or email address? How about the date? Those are just the personal examples. If you are in business, you can multiply that list by at least a factor of 100. TextExpander can help you with all of those and much, much more. For now, though, I want you to visit textexpander.com/podcast, learn all there is to know, and download your free demo. Once you start using TextExpander, you will never go back. That's textexpander.com/podcast for your demo and for your first step into a more productive world. Thanks to Smile, the makers of TextExpander, for their support of MacVoices.
And there might be a bit of a delay because of our Wi-Fi, but we're getting that worked out right now. It shouldn't be too bad. Okay. Can you see me?
Yes.
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. This is eGlass. This is the camera perspective. You'll notice the background behind me is really dark. We do that on purpose. And this room, as you saw in the image before, the room is fully lit. In fact, I'm in a really bright classroom right now. There's sunlight pouring through the windows. I'm not using it in a dark room, but because of this chroma clear technology that we use in our camera, in the glass, and also in the video processing, all I have to do is throw up a dark background. In fact, I don't even need a dark background, but the backdrop really allows me to eliminate any distracting backdrops. But because of chroma clear, the background will become dark, and I use the adjustable instructor lights to make me bright. So you see me really well, but this is where the key comes in. It's when I grab a marker and I start to write on the glass. So what you can do with eGlass, and this is why it's so impactful for basically any sort of presentation, is that you see my face and my writing in the same window. And it basically, there's a lot going on here that's so exciting. First, it just looks cool, right? You have this kind of Star Trek-y glow to it. I'm going to grab another marker here and show you how engaging it can be. So, I hope I spelled that right. So, what's happening here is, first, I'm putting ink on the board and the camera is flipping the image. But there's a lot of other things happening. You get to see me. Imagine we're in a classroom. I'm a teacher. The students can see the teacher's face, and it's embedded with the content that I'm trying to teach. This is really big because if you think about it, right now, what are teachers doing when they're teaching online? Yeah, a lot of them have a webcam, right? They're using the webcam on their computer. Great. But guess what happens? Their webcam image is put up in the corner of the screen, minimized, so that they can share their PowerPoint on the screen and walk their students through it. Death by PowerPoint. I mean, we're seeing engagement levels drop. We're seeing grades drop. Student attendance is dropping critically. In fact, I just spoke with a teacher a couple days ago on Zoom, and bless her heart, she was almost in tears because most of her students were not attending class. They weren't even showing up at all. Attendance was at 0 for most of her students. And she was heartbroken because as a teacher, she cares about her students pretty much more than anything, right? And the teacher has this dilemma where they need to teach the students the content that they're putting on the board, right? But there's a problem because the content takes the limelight and the teacher's face gets pushed off to the side. So there's this battle between content and connection. And so what eGlass is doing is it's introducing this concept of embodied learning. And there's a little pun in there. I am literally embodying, my body is built into the content, and you're seeing my face, my facial expressions, my physical gestures where you can see me point to things, even my gaze. You can tell what I'm looking at right now. Can you guys see? Am I looking at eGlass? Am I looking at the word engage? No, I'm looking at E equals MC squared because you can track my gaze. That's critically important. That's a huge nonverbal communicator that people don't really talk about, but it makes a huge impact. And you don't know how good it is until it's gone. And guess what? Right now in learning, it's gone. Students are not even attending class because they're tired of looking at PowerPoints. Here's another crazy thing teachers are doing. Have you guys ever seen those like little handheld whiteboards? Teachers will literally, they want to share their full screen because they know their students need to see them. So what they'll do is they'll turn their webcam on. They won't share a PowerPoint, and they'll grab a little whiteboard and they'll like hold it right here and try and write on it because they have to write it the right way. Because if they write it like this, it'll be backwards. So they have to fit this little whiteboard into their webcam's frame. The students can't see it. The teacher has to write, with their back to the to their webcam. It's just a pain. And so embodied learning is not being achieved. And so for the first time, we're able to do that with eGlass, where you can see my face and my writing in the same window. You see my gaze, what I'm looking at when I'm teaching, to add those references and direct my students' attention to what I want to direct, them towards. You also see my emotions, right? If I'm a little confused about something because I'm trying to drive a point, you see that. If I'm super excited, you can feel it like you're on the other side of the glass. That's the thing. Emotion has been taken out of learning for the sake of death by PowerPoint. It's a big problem. And so when G found Matt and G told me about this new concept that we could work together, we can work with Learning Glass to provide teachers with an all-in-one full package solution, plug and play, that will allow them to achieve embodied learning through a single USB cable, I got so excited. And when I started showing teachers, oh my gosh, the reaction has been incredible, because it's like a lifeboat for them. They're like, finally, there's another chance for me to get my students excited about learning again. So this is really big. And it's not just big for education. Anytime you're in a Zoom meeting and someone is trying to communicate anything outside of words, you need some sort of content sharing platform. So a lot of people share their screens and they click through things. Great. But their face, again, gets pushed to the side for the sake of the content. And so think about online training, board meetings, any kind of meeting that requires someone putting notes on the board, collaborating, people working together on ideas. This is going to be huge for that. Or think about YouTubers that want to post tutorial videos or draw my lives, or this is a physics problem. If you're like G and you're interested in your downtime and learning about magnetic resonance or whatever he was talking about beyond me, eGlass is there for that. So,
by the way, that's my primary way of entertainment, watching physics lessons.
Hey, to each their own.
I saw my view count jump on that day, G. Thank you.
Yeah, you have to have the charismatic aspects that Matt clearly has.
Yes.
Yeah.
What Bailey has demonstrated is that this seems to be a trivial thing that for the first time now we're facing the students, not back facing the students. But if you really think about it, it's almost the first time that the presenter and the content are really looking in the right orientation, and the audience, the presenter, and the content is in the right places. So you have the presenter's face, and the presenter is looking at the content, and the audience is also looking at the content. So you can say it is then synergistic way of participating in a presentation or getting ideas across. So I think that's pretty big. And Matt used to say this is a kind of a paradigm shift. I think it's actually a pretty profound paradigm shift. And the other thing, we notice is that Bailey also pointed out the gaze and the body movement, really showing the audience what you're looking at, what you're thinking of. And the expression also helps putting that rapport, the human connection, when you actually meet face to face. When we are really in the same room meeting face to face, you put a 3D object in front of you, and you all can be talking about it. But this almost make that somewhat better. You're looking at the same thing, and then you have that face-to-face connection. So this is a tool to us. It seems like it's going to help all the video conferencing meetings. It's going to help all the students and the teachers. So interact better, learn better.
Yeah, that's a great point, G. And just one thing that I wanted to add, Chuck, is this is not just a solution for online learning. It also works very well in the face-to-face classroom. So one of the approaches that I have taken in my classes is I have one of these eGlass units at the front of the room, and then I connect the video output to the very large projection screen that all the students can see. And not only can they see the writing clearly, but now they can see me really clearly. They can see my eyes, they can record my gestures. They get the whole close-up experience, even though they might be sitting in a very large classroom 100 feet away. And so one of the points we think is that this eGlass technology is great for online, but also works incredibly well in face-to-face, and in particular is going to be fantastic for hybrid, because teachers are now having to teach 2 courses, and my kids' teachers are saying the same thing. I teach my face-to-face students, right, the limited number that are coming to class, and then I have to do the whole thing again for a different set of students that is at home online. And if they do the entire lecture on eGlass, if they're communicating with their students in the classroom on eGlass and piping it out to their students at home, now they have to do it once. And every student gets the same content, and there is this notion of digital equity. The students that are in class aren't getting an advantage over the students that are at home. And I've done this with my classes at San Diego State University. And what we found was the students actually preferred that mode of operation. Rather than just coming to the face-to-face class and sitting in the lecture, being able to occasionally stay home and watch this course, this hybrid course, they were actually more engaged than the students that were solely in the face-to-face class. So it's a little backwards and a little surprising, that result, but they actually felt more connected to me and to my class in this hybrid online setting rather than just coming to the class. So I think there's a real exciting opportunity here, and I think the teachers are going to respond incredibly favorably. The ones that have already adopted it are just in love with it and do not want to go back.
I think that's a really important point that you made, Matt, because I can see someone saying, gee, do we want to invest in this now that we have vaccinations and at least in theory, COVID is dropping, and we hope that we're looking at going back to normal, whatever that means anymore. And the idea that, okay, something like this could be used not just for virtual learning, but also for the in-person learning to enhance the in-person learning and improve the in-person learning. But also maybe give options for, reaching out digitally for those folks who can't come for whatever reasons. Forget COVID. Maybe they have transportation issues or absence issues or, a dozen different things. This would give them that option as well. So there's so many, there are different aspects that I think are fascinating.
Chuck.
Yeah. And let me, Bailey, if you don't mind me interjecting one thing really quickly. You're absolutely right, Chuck, that the ability to have those lessons available for the students that didn't make it to class for whatever reason is absolutely critical, right? My students love to go back through my lectures and pause and, look at various concepts much more carefully. But the other point, which, was kind of the whole point of eGlass in the first place, was to be able to see the teacher's face. And even in a traditional classroom, when you're writing on the whiteboard or the chalkboard, you necessarily are turning away from your students, right? You are not looking at your students. They are not getting the gestures in real time when you are trying to illustrate things on the board. The voice is maybe not as crisp. So even in the face-to-face classroom, this problem is alleviated by eGlass. Now they can see you. They can see everything. And you can see them. You can look right out through the glass and see them. I do this in my class all the time. I'm looking out. I'm like, okay, are they confused over there? Is that student just checking their Facebook, or are they like, completely zoned out? What's happening over there, right? I can tell a physics joke to really liven them up, which always goes over well, let me tell you. So there's a lot of aspects here. Sorry to interrupt, Bailey. Go ahead.
No, I mean, you kind of covered what I was going to say, but I mean, even in the business sector, right, or in the creative spaces, one fundamental thing has always existed in any presentation. Ever since the advent of the chalkboard, which was like 300 plus years ago, like Matt mentioned, you have to be opposite of the board. Whether you're using a chalkboard, a whiteboard, or even the new interactive, touchscreen panels and TVs that a lot of schools have now, and a lot of boardrooms have now, and a lot of offices and collaborative spaces have now, there's a problem that the presenter has to turn their back, right? And then also there's these new interactive boards, right? Digital touchscreen. People don't really like writing with digital ink all the time. Stylus, there's some out there that are really good, but most aren't. And there's this romantic feeling of watching real ink leave the pen. Right, there's no delay, there's no lag, and so when you're presenting, right, you don't have to turn your back anymore with eGlass, and we've seen the results, we've seen the engagement. Matt has seen it in his students himself. They all prefer and they learn better when they can see the instructor's face. And in the classroom, you also, like Matt mentioned, and I just want to say it again to drive it home, this is a glass panel. And I can look through this glass panel and I can see the whole classroom right in front of me. So I can make eye contact with my students. I no longer need eyes in the back of my head. I use the ones I have already, and I look through the glass. So
this was a great conversation with G, Matt, and Bailey. In the second part, which will be in the next edition of MacVoices, we talk about some of the geeky details surrounding eGlass. Some of Matt's personal experience is in using eGlass as a teaching aid, and get into some philosophical discussions about exactly how learning can be done or should be done, either virtually or in person in today's world. That's next time on MacVoices. Until then, and as always, I'm Chuck Joyner. Thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices, or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you MacVoices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.